Hi, so I'm 24F, and for the last 6 years, I have not been in touch with my mother, 46F. Which is quite unfortunate, since she was the only parent that I had. My father passed away when I was really little, maybe when I was around 4 years old, so he was never in the picture. He had an accident, it was his fault. He was driving drunk while coming back home from a party and well, it did not end too well for him. My mother had cut her family off after she got married to my father since they were not ready to accept the fact that she was getting married so young, and they had a lot of fights about it. But once she was pregnant with me, there was no turning back. My dad was pretty rich, and I guess that was one of the main reasons why my mother got married to him so early, regardless of my existence. Getting pregnant with me was just an excuse for her to rush the wedding, at least that's what I'm guessing. Because of the way she treated me after I was born, I really don't think that she wanted me in her life. I never felt very connected to her, and that was definitely not my fault because honestly, she never showed me any love or affection that one deserves to have experienced as a child. I don't even think I can remember a time that she actually hugged me or told me that she loved me when I was little. I actually felt a lot more connected to my grandparents on my father's side of the family because most of the time, I used to spend my day with them. My mother would go out for work and then return in the evening, but as soon as she was back, she would get busy again. She would either invite her friends or she would go out with them. It never seemed like she had any time for me. When I was really young, she would invite them over to babysit me and pretend to be on good terms with them and be really sweet to them, but as soon as I was little, she started leaving me home alone and I got really bored, so I would end up going over to their house, and when I would come back, she would scold me for, even though she knew that had nothing to do with anything and she was at home because she was not talking to me, she was busy with her friends. The reason that she did not want me to visit my grandparents once I got a little older and she didn't exactly need them to babysit me, was because she did not want to come off like she was ill-treating me or something, which wasn't, I don't think so. But I do think that I was emotionally neglected in that household, and that's why I kept going to my grandparents. She was done pretending to be nice to them because now that I was older, and I got 3 on my own, she did not need their help anymore, and so, they had been discarded. But I was not going to treat them the same way because, for me, they were the only family that I had. My grandparents would never talk about my mother, and it felt like they would steer clear of the topic on purpose. It was not until later that I found out why. For almost 18 years of my life, I lived with my mother and managed to never form a real bond with her. We were related by blood, but that was about it. There was nothing more to our relationship than that. She made sure of it. I tried to reach out to her several times, in order to connect. But as I grew older, it was harder for me to actually get along with her, and after one point, we just stopped talking. We would only speak to each other if it was absolutely necessary and never otherwise. I did not have anything to do with her because everything that I wanted was mostly paid for by my grandparents. They were pretty, they could afford it. I did not want to ask my mother for anything either, regardless of how much she earned. I did not feel comfortable doing it because we hardly ever spoke to each other. We did get into a really big fight once, though. I think I was in my freshman year and I don't remember what happened in detail, but I think I had asked her to attend some event that was participating in, and she had told me that she was going to go out on a date that day, so it would not be possible for her. I found it really insulting that she was going to choose a first date over my event, and I told her that I was done with her, and I wanted to move in with my grandparents because I did not want to live with her anymore since it was very obvious that she did not care about me. That day, she told me never to say that again because, regardless of who I consider family, she still was my parent, and she had apparently promised my father that I would live with her and she would be there for me. So we ended up fighting, and it went on for a long time, but after that, she started crying and completely broke down, or maybe she was acting, I don't really know. But watching her cry made me feel a little weak, and I ended up telling her that I wouldn't go to my grandparents. She made me promise that I would never bring it up again and I would live with her until I was old enough to move out. So I ended up spending my life with her until she eventually decided to kick me out. My mom switched boyfriends pretty often, and I was aware of it. I never judged her for it because honestly, I don't think it's my business. However, when I was in my sophomore year, she started dating Dale, 50M. I didn't think that this Dale guy would stick around for long because he was not exactly my mother's type since he was kind of short, and my mom really doesn't like short guys since she herself is almost 5 feet 9 inches. But then I found out that he was rich, and rich, I mean, he was really filthy rich. He came from one of the most influential business families in the state, and they had met online, on a dating app. Then, it suddenly all started making sense, but he was putting in so much effort to get him to like her and acting so different and sweet around him whenever he would come over. She even introduced me to him, and that was something new, since usually, whenever her boyfriends would come over, I had strict instructions to either clear out or stay in my room and not make any noise that would disturb them. But with him, she actually treated me like family, probably in a bid to make herself seem like a good mother and a good person. I found it all a little disorienting and really fake, but it was not my business, so I did not say anything about it. They dated for 2 years and then, Dale asked her to move in with him. I was actually there when that happened because he did it at a family dinner and he had specifically asked for me to be present there because he believed that with her, he also had to accept me and he was ready to do that for my mom. So technically, he asked both of us to move in with him and even told me that I would have my own separate room there and it would be much bigger than what I had now. I was actually really happy when that happened because I thought that maybe he would treat me better than my mother had and I thought it was really nice of him. I thought that my mother would be pleased that Dale was so in love with her that he was ready to accept me as his own daughter and treat me like that, but for some reason, she did not like it one bit and after Dale left that day, she told me that she had to discuss something very serious with me. I think she was not happy about the fact that even after getting together with Dale, she would still have to deal with my presence in her life and she wanted to make sure that I did not go with her to the new home. So she told me that, now that I was legally an adult, she did not want to be tagging along anymore. I did not even understand what she was talking about until she explained to me that now that I had turned 18, she wanted to move in by herself. She told me that she could understand why Dale had assumed that she would want me to come along with her, but that was not the case. She wanted to have a life of her own now and she was done being a mother to me. She told me that she believed now that I was an adult, I was old enough to handle life on my own, and I didn't even have to worry about money because my grandparents were well enough to handle everything for me. And in a couple of months, I was going to be in college, so I shouldn't take it too hard. I was really shocked that she was actually acknowledging the fact that she did not want to be a mother to me anymore. But then again, she had never really been a mother to me at any point in time, so that's not too surprising that this was her take on the entire situation. I did not say much to her that day, I just told her that I would understand and I really didn't care. I would have much rather stayed with my grandparents. I told her, very bluntly, that I did not want anything to do with her after this point and she could do whatever she wanted to do. I did not want to be a part of her life anymore. I also told her that I could finally understand what she had when we had our first fight when I mentioned going away to live with my grandparents. It had always been fake. She did not even bother to deny any of it and just stood there without saying anything. The only thing that she told me, before I left, was that she would only request me not to say anything about this to Dale because it would ruin his impression of her. It was really laughable, but I told her that I wouldn't say anything because honestly, I did not care anymore. I did not even care enough to ruin her life. That's how relieved I was now that I could finally go away and live with people who actually wanted me around them. I left her home that very night and never went back. Whatever I had left there, my grandparents retrieved it for me a couple of days later, and soon enough, we had cut all ties with her. From then on, I have never looked back and I have had absolutely zero contact with my mother. So much has happened since then. I have graduated from high school, then from college, and I even got married and had a child a couple of years ago. I am a mother myself now, and I can't imagine putting my child through whatever she put me through, so there is no forgiveness for her. That day, after I moved in with my grandparents, and I told him everything about what my mother had said, I got to find out a lot of things about her. I found out that my father was actually not in a rush to get married and wanted to enjoy his life, but then she got pregnant with me and obviously, she kept the baby because she wanted to get married to my dad so that she could spend the rest of her life living off of his money. She had every intention of quitting her job and then staying at home with me, but then, unfortunately, my dad got into an accident, and then life took an unexpected turn for all of us. And for yours, my grandparents know to send her money for my expenses, which went into her own expenses. From what I know, she never spent a dime on me because anytime I wanted something, I would just ask my grandparents to buy it for me and they would do it, no questions asked. She was clever enough to keep her mouth shut about the money that she was receiving from my grandparents, so she could continue pulling off this huge scam. When my grandparents found out about it, they told me that they knew about this but they really didn't want to fight her or argue with her after my fight with my mother in my sophomore year, after which she had made me promise to never to talk about leaving her and going to live with my grandparents. I never really brought up any of this with them anyway. But after I moved in with them, I realized that all of us had wasted a lot of time and money on that woman, and we were pissed about it, but there was not much that we could do. She had kind of played us all and good for her, I guess. At least after that, I knew where I stood, and I did not try to get back in touch with her ever again. I went to college on my grandparents' money and got a degree in finance. Then, I got my first job and there, I met my husband. We were together for 2 years before he proposed and then we got married about 1.5 years ago and 3 months back, I had my first child with him, our daughter. Life has been pretty good to me after I cut ties with my mother, and I don't have much to complain about. I am really lucky that I had such supportive grandparents with me, standing by my side, every step of the way. And after that, I'm really thankful for my husband, who completed me in every way possible. As for my mother, she was really living it up, with her new rich boyfriend and new rich friends and a home in the rich neighborhood. I know that because my grandparents did kind of keep tabs on her and other nosy relatives would oftentimes tell them about what she was up to. She had undergone a complete makeover and now, she was part of the elite club and was too high up there for her to bother looking down on us. But I didn't care, she could do whatever she wanted to, it did not really make a difference to me since I was happy with my own life. I had a nice job and earned a decent amount of money, I had a great husband and a loving family. That's more than what I could ask for. I don't know how she might have explained my absence in her life to Dale though, I guess she must have cooked up some story about me, not wanting to come along with her and cut ties with her, to make me seem like the bad guy and her seem like the innocent person in this whole situation. Anyway, for the past 6 years, we have had no contact with her. But about 2 weeks ago, I received a phone call from her, and it was quite desperate since she told me that she really wanted me to attend her wedding that was happening in 1 week. I thought that it was a bit weird that she was inviting me on the phone and just 1 week before the event. When I asked her why, she told me that a lot of people had a lot to say about the fact that she was no longer in touch with her daughter, and in order to save face, she had to invite me and make sure that everybody knew that we did not have a terrible relationship. So we could at least reconcile at the wedding for the public, and then we could go our separate ways once again. So it was basically all to whitewash her image since people were raising questions about the reason behind our strained relationship. I thought that it was really bold to make such a demand, after 6 years of not being in touch with me, and I was about to decline the invitation, but then, I thought that I would go along with it and teach her a lesson for a lifetime. It was petty, I'll give you that. But I really just wanted her to know exactly what I thought of her, and so, I did what I had to. So I agreed to attend the event, and she was quite thankful to me at the moment, not having any idea what was allowed to happen later. For the next couple of days, we did not have any contact, and we then met straight on the day of the wedding itself. For the record, my grandparents did not know what was going to happen, and I did not tell them because I knew that they would discourage me from doing it, and I just wanted to do something bad for once in my life and get back at somebody who had put me down. I did not want to be the bigger person in this situation, basically. I told my husband what had happened, and he agreed to go along with my plan. So, on the day of the wedding, I showed up with my husband and my daughter. We had shown up right before the ceremony, and after that, once the vows had been exchanged, she started attending to all the guests, and when she came to us, she made a huge show of hugging me with tears in her eyes and reconciling with me. She kept talking about how difficult these past 6 years had been without me and how she was so happy that I decided to apologize and attend her wedding. I was really confused, but then, I figured that she must have come up with some story where I was the bad guy, and I was the one who apologized to her and accepted the invitation. I didn't care about it because everything would be exposed in just a matter of an hour or so. Even Dale came up to me and told me that he was so glad that I had chosen to reconcile with my mother and apologize to her, and told me that he hoped that nothing of this sort would ever occur again, and he looked quite serious while telling me that, so I'm guessing that she must have come up with something terrible that I had done to her or said to her. Anyway, after all that was done, people started making the wedding speeches, and after the people who were supposed to make the speeches were done, I decided to get up and put my plan into action. When I stood up, my mother started looking really alarmed, but she couldn't exactly tell me to sit down or whatever, since that would be a little weird. So she had no choice but to let me get to the mic and start speaking. I started off congratulating the happy couple, and then I started telling everybody about what a wonderful mother she had always been to me. I talked a bit about how she had treated me when I was younger, and then I got to the part where she told me that I could not move into the new house with her, and because she wanted a fresh start and she did not want to be a mother to me anymore. I thanked her for not giving me a room in the new house that day, and I told her that had she not done that, I might never have moved in with my grandparents and my life might not have been what it is today. And I really am thankful to her because I'm really happy with the life that I have now. I told her about my wonderful job and the people that I call family now, and said that they are a billion times better than she could ever be to me. Then, after I had one final look at everybody's shocked faces in the audience, especially my mom's, I decided to walk out of the wedding after congratulating her on her face. Then, my husband and I drove home with our daughter and had a good laugh about everybody's faces at the event. However, now, she is really mad. I'm not concerned about that, but unfortunately, she got in touch with my grandparents. She told them all about what had happened at the wedding, and now, my grandparents think that I took it a little too far and I should have just declined the invitation if I did not want to go instead of attending the event and then ruining it for her. They think that it was really petty, and I agree with them, it really was. But I don't think that I did anything wrong. She had the audacity to call me after 6 years of having no contact with me. I think what I did was the right thing to do. Somebody needed to take her down and I did what I had to do. I have no regrets about what I did. But my grandparents think that it would be better if I apologized because right now, her life is in shambles after my speech. Obviously, since now all her lies have been exposed, and I'm guessing that Dale also has a huge problem with what I said. Now that the truth is out, people are obviously not going to like it and the consequences of her own actions, so I don't see my fault here. Ida for attending my mother's wedding and making a speech about how badly she had treated me earlier. Update 1. Hi, so I decided to talk to my grandparents and I explained to them just how hurt and angry I had been in the past. They told me that they understood, but the mature thing to do would have been to just decline the invitation and block her number. She had only been able to contact me because it was a new phone number and I didn't know it was her. I was really curious, which is why I had even spoken to her instead of hanging up the second that I figured out it was my mother. Anyway, that's beside the point. My parents told me that they thought I was being a little too petty and that I was not fully over what had happened yet. And I told them that I wasn't. I don't think anybody in my place would have been either. It's been 6 years, but I spent 18 years with that woman and it still hurts when I think about it because at the end of the day, she was still my mother, and she owed certain things to me, but she did not live up to any of my expectations. So maybe I might have been petty, and I don't know if what I did was right or wrong, but one thing is for sure, it really made me feel better. It made me feel like I had gotten my revenge was not a good thing, but at least I did not feel like a total fool anymore. We had a hard conversation and we were able to talk about it. They apologized to me for judging me too hard and said that maybe they wouldn't understand what I was going through because they were in a different place in their lives and it was okay for us to have differing views on what happened. And agree with them, as long as it does not get in the way of our relationship. So for now, my grandparents and I are cool. It has been a couple of days since the wedding ceremony and, personally, I haven't received any word from my mother yet. She had only been in touch with my grandparents, not me. I don't think she's going to get back in touch with me either after what happened. Update 2. Hello. So it has been a week since the wedding and I guess I was wrong about what I said. My mother definitely did get back in touch with me. She really is absolutely shameless. She sent me a message from another number since I had blocked the previous one. And she probably guessed that this time, if she tried to call me, and I realized that it was her, I would probably block that number as well. So she did the clever thing and decided to send me a message instead. In the message, she told me that I had absolutely ruined her wedding and now, her entire family hated her. I don't even know who she's talking about when she says family because I know for a fact that she's not actually in touch with her biological family anymore. And I also know that she is not talking about me or my grandparents. So I'm guessing that she's probably talking about her husband's family right now and I think it's perfectly reasonable for them to hate her because the things that I said were not nice. But to be fair, the things that she did were also not nice. And I just spoke my truth. So if she wanted me to say good things about her, she probably should have coached me on what to say instead of just inviting me and expecting me to be fake after 6 years of no contact. She told me that Dale was also not speaking to her, and they were supposed to leave for their honeymoon in a couple of days. So before that, I had to fix the situation and tell everybody that I was just mad and I had only accepted the invitation because I wanted to ruin her wedding since I still resented her for what had happened all those years ago. I don't even know what she's talking about and she says what happened all those years ago, so there's absolutely no chance that I'm going to own up to mistakes that I have not even made. I'm not going to pretend to be the bad guy here, just so she can save face. And the audacity to still expect me to be fake and cover up her lies, it's just insane how she's acting. I did not even bother to respond to that message and just blocked her. It's infuriating. She thinks that she is entitled to anything that she asks for and I should just roll with it. At this point, I'm just considering sending that message to Dale somehow and forcing him to open his eyes and really see what a terrible person he has been involved with all this time. She is the fake one, she is the pretentious one and she is the one who deserves every bad thing that is coming her way right now. I don't even feel sorry for her because she's never going to become a better person. Update 3. So I was about to reach out to Dale myself, but luckily, he was the one who reached out to me first. It's been a couple of days since I received the last message from my mother and I thought that they were going to leave for their honeymoon anyway because Dale has been with my mom for a really long time now and I didn't think that he would believe her. But, he does, which is why he reached out to me in the first place. He reached out to me on social media, since he did not have my phone number, and sent me a message on Facebook. He told me that he had decided to annul his marriage with my mother after the speech that I had made at the wedding. After that, he confronted my mother after the event and tried to get the truth out of her. For the next couple of days, she had resisted really hard and tried to tell him that I was lying and that I was out of my mind and stuff, but I seemed pretty sane and reasonable at the wedding itself, so he found it hard to believe that I had suddenly just lost my mind. So he kept pushing and pushing, and finally, my mother had to come out and tell him the truth. She confirmed that what I had said was indeed true and tried to defend herself by saying that she did not even want to be my mother anymore since she was not cut out for that job and she had realized after I was born. Now this did not align with the story that she had told him initially, that I had decided not to move into the new house with the deal and had insulted her, called her a gold digger, and a lot of other things. Apparently, that's the story that she had fed him for years, that I resented her for having a new boyfriend, and apparently, I believed that this was a betrayal to my father. So now that the truth was finally out, he had decided to separate and part ways with my mother. He thought that it was important to tell me because I deserved to know this. He did not say anything else, but I'm just grateful that I was able to save at least one man by doing all of this. I really hope he finds somebody better. He seems like a nice person. I know what it feels like to find out that you have wasted so many years of your life giving to the wrong person. Anyway, I'm happy and I'm just going to move on from this now.